would be one, and then I think we're going to need to have a discussion about lot 12. So other than that, I think we're good.
Yeah.
Okay, anything you want from us?
I just
Besides an
want,
approval.
oh, yeah, of course. I just wanted to reiterate that all the impervious surfaces are directed away from the wetlands and captured in our drainage system and treated by the stormwater facilities before it discharges towards Saltzman Lake.
I took a quick gander at the SWIP, but I didn't have time to read it in detail, nor is that particularly part of my bailiwick, but I did take a quick look at it, so I noticed that. Thanks.
Okay.
Good. Okay, good, thank you.
Thank
now
you.
going to open this up to the public. Anyone wishing to speak to this application, please come up, state your name. And I will do that momentarily. Yes, I will motion to open the public hearing. Got that? Okay. All in favor? Aye. State your name, please, sir.
First name John, John. Last name Pricto, Prictoe.
I think you're best just taking the mic out of the holder and holding it up, because otherwise you have a sore back.
Thank you.
It should be. Is it green light?
Hello, testing, yes.
Yep, you're good.
I spoke before on this. I came before the litigation, and this was for the initial variance was requested. I guess that time, if I remember, first of all, I am one of the concerned community. I am a community member. I'm just off the map about here. So I have enjoyed the view of this wooded ravine for the last 25 years. I think I realize some of this is water under the bridge, but I did object last time. I didn't understand then why they had to have this variance, because there didn't seem any reason for it other than the project couldn't roll without it, but I never understood that. I mean, when they bought the property, they knew what it was. Fair enough. It went to litigation. I know that's over. I'm just amazed. I thought, okay, so I've been waiting for the bulldozers to show up, but I can't believe there's another variance. I thought it was all done. I think I think the neighborhood was resigned to the wetland. It is a wooded ravine. There's frogs down there. That's all going to be destroyed. Let's be clear. Thank you very much. But nothing I can do about that. But I'm just saying this variance bothers me. I mean, it's a 60. Somebody said something about a 44% variance. 15 into 45 is 66% variance, right? Now, I don't know if the original variance was 66. I mean, I didn't quite understand what the change is, but did the litigation actually allow the 66 variance? I mean, 15,000, they're requesting a 15,000 lot, right? I don't know which one it is. But if the minimum lot size is 45,000, how do you do a 15,000? That's quite a precedence to set. Now, if the legal ruling said that's allowed, that's fine. But if not, I would say that personally, I think that's quite a precedence to be setting. Now, I did hear the other comment about everything's on its own merits, but I don't think this project has any merits personally. But I would just the real point is I think that's a massive variance. I mean, I'm resigned to the building. I've known about this for years, but it doesn't have to be. It's just like salt in the wound, First we had the first variance, now we got the second variance. I mean, when's it going to end? Are you going to? What do you want from us? That's all I'm asking. And yeah, the 66%. If my maths is right, it seems very, very large. So that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Just come up. Don't. We're not in school.
Good evening. My name is William Byer. I live at 7 Jefferson Street, which on the map is right here. I've been living there for 40 years, so I know all that land like my own backyard, as most everybody that's here to attend tonight. First off, I'd like to thank everybody on the board for the time that you put in at no compensation to be a watchdog for both parties. and we really appreciate it, and it's a lot of hard work. The other guy that was up here before with the parking lot, my head was spinning trying to absorb what he was saying. So you guys have to deal with this all of the time. But initially, at the beginning of the presentation, I got an impression that it sounded like the owner willingly dropped from 15 to 13 to make it sound like I'm trying to work with the town. So I don't know if that's a true statement that I interpreted or not, but the truth is the original 15 home development goes way back into the early 90s. And then the regulatory agency, I don't know if it was EPA, Army Corps of Engineer, deemed that the lot in the northwestern corner were 2 lots that was so unbuildable that they eliminated one of the lots. That dropped it to 14. And then at a later point in time, where the lot number 2 is, that was also supposed to be 2 lots, and that was deemed one of the lots unbuildable, which dropped it to 13. So no previous owner willingly dropped it from 15 to 13. That was ordered. So my question right now, my first question is, the variances that were ordered by the court that you were forced to comply with, it's my understanding a variance is only good for a certain amount of time, and you get 1 extension. I believe it's 90 days, and then you get 1 extension. So those variances that the court ordered you to approve, they've long since expired, correct?
Technically, that is correct. That if you don't get a building permit within 90 days or extended, effectively, let's call it 180 days, that the variance becomes null and void, doesn't exist anymore, and a new application. Essentially, that's what's being done here, is that there is a new application for variances, but given the context of, and that's why I wanted a clarification on which lots were covered by the lawsuit, that there's no point going back and having them litigated again because the lot size have not changes. I'm sorry, the lot sizes have not appreciably changed, okay? And the point of going back and spending money in litigation, probably to no good and no point. It just doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense.
Okay. Now,
And that's, I believe, recommendation of counsel.
Yeah, so for those ones that were granted the prior variances, that decision, that court decision, that of course holds weight here. Now there are changes due to the wetland delineation, really the main one. So now those net lot areas that received variances previously are not the same that are being sought here. So for some of them, because of more wetlands, now they're seeking larger variances. So that's things that this board will look to and consider those changes and how those changes impact the request before it.
so when the judge made her ruling, it was based on a premise that she felt the needs of the developer outweigh the needs of the town. And it was mentioned earlier tonight, laws are laws. And there's a reason, at least I feel, why it's 1 acre zoning, why those laws have been created, and it's to protect from higher density. So in my opinion, it doesn't matter what exists in the surrounding area. That's from another time and place. And we're dealing with current zoning laws of 1 acre, correct? So, and pardon my fictional analogy, but if anybody that watches the Star Wars movies, Star Trek movies, Spock gave his life up at one time to save the lives of everybody on his ship, and he said the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the one. And it seems like the judge has ruled the opposite, that the needs of the one developer are outweighing the needs of what the town is trying to maintain. Now, the previous, if my memory is correct, the previous variance application, the zoning board initially denied the application with a caveat if the owner was to eliminate one or two of the lots on the inner loop. You could reconfigure everything, and then you would have all of the lots within the 1 acre zoning. And the owner actually did that. He came back for a follow-up meeting, and he was told to reduce 1 or 2 on the inside, 1 or 2 on the outside, and everything would comply. So he came back with only 1 or 2 lots, forget how many, I think maybe 1 or 2, I don't remember, eliminated here. So he was complying with the inside, but he did not eliminate anything on the outside, and that was the grounds that the zoning board, I believe, denied the application, that he refused to make any further changes to work with the board. And then it went to court, and the judge apparently ruled in favor here that he didn't have to eliminate everything. So I don't know what position this puts you in now. It sounds like out of these 13 lots, only one of them is currently in compliance.
So the judge's ruling, if we're correct and it's going to be verified, we're on the lots in the inner loop. Okay? The outer loop, essentially, at the time of that decision, did not require variances. So they were not before the judge.
Correct.
They didn't, it had no bearing. Okay? So the decision of the court was that the variances were to be granted for the inner loop. Just so that that's clear. There was no application for variances on the outer because at the time they did not need variances. Okay?
Okay, so if, is the current owner willing to possibly work with the suggestion that was initially presented at the previous application? Eliminate 1 or 2 of the lots on each one, and then all of the lots would fall into compliance with the 1 acre zoning? That would require a reduction to maybe 10 or 11 homes. The previous owner wasn't willing to do that. I don't know if the current owner would be willing to negotiate or accept a compromise.
We can't speak.
We can't.
Right. So I don't know how any of that works, but just a thought out loud. Another question I had is the area up on the top here, when you get to Wigan Hill and you have to make the left to gain access into the development. This portion past here is we know that's a private road, but at the planning board meeting, I believe it was undetermined if this section from the top of Wigan Hill to the entrance is also a private road, or was that road deeded to the town at an earlier point in time?
That would be a planning board question.
And it wasn't determined at the time of the meeting, so I don't know if any information had been given to you.
And it's not relevant to our determinations.
The only reason I ask that is because this entire road is going to be a town road, right? This development is going to be a town road. It's going to be maintained by the town, or is it going to be a private development?
No idea. Again, not part of our determinations. I would presume it would eventually be dedicated to the town, to the village, but I don't know. And again, it's not relevant to the discussion and determinations and the request for variances here.
All right, I only ask because some work would have to be done if it's going to be a town road. That's a very narrow road. You can only get pretty much one car down that road. If somebody's coming the other way, you almost can't pass each other. So I don't know how they would get property added to widen that road so they would even have legal access to start to get in there.
Again, that up to the planning board, and the highway engineer would discuss that. And if there's a need, I'm sure, for taking from an eminent domain perspective, but that would all be under the planning board. It has nothing to do with our determination on variances.
Okay, so am I correct to assume that at the current time for 1 acre zoning, only one of these 13 lots is within the legal accepted size to build? All the remaining 12 lots are undersized and need variance, is correct?
That is basically what's before us, a request for variance of a variety of square footage for either all of or all but one of the lots.
To me, that's a huge favor to be asking of the board, of the town, of all the people that live here, that have a certain standard of what we want our area to look like. And I don't believe that it won't set a precedent, because if you give to one, somebody else is going to square root the same thing as being square rooted here, and they're going to say, well, this is what happened here. Maybe not say you gave it to him, you got to give it to me, but they're going to use that as a precedent, and the lawyers that get paid big money will figure out ways to come in front of you for something else. And I believe it's a bad precedent to set by allowing this variance to go through. And thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. Going once. Going twice. Anyone else? Okay.
So a couple of points, because I appreciate this gentleman's concerns. We should be clear about what density actually is, which is the number of homes per size of a lot area. This is not creating more density because the number of homes are not greater than 1 home per acre. So what is it that we're really talking about here? Back in the old days, and by the old days I mean maybe 50 years ago, there were many features of land that were delineated as places where there should not be building. These were ineligible building areas, but they were not deducted from minimum lot size. What occurred over time, last 20, 30 years, on and on, including in this village doing something that I'm not aware that any other village does, is require a deduction from minimum lot area, in this case, for stormwater easement. Now, it's one thing to turn around, and sir, you had it conceptually correct in terms of saying, you know, how much area is there physically able to be developed. And if you have to preserve wetlands, well, you're not developing in that area. Doesn't mean that you have to necessarily make a policy decision if you're a village board and deduct that from lot area. All that means is that you're radically increasing the size of lots, but you're not changing, if you don't deduct it from lot area, the density. All you're saying is, if you were to take a different tack than the village board took, is simply to say, well, you can't build on that. You can't build on the steep slopes, you can't build in the wetlands, but you can still have a lot that's an acre that's got a lot of wetlands and it's got a lot of steep slopes. And if you have area left over that you can build, then you build there. Now, that's what this application is all about. It's not to increase density. It's not to change the number of allowed people in an area. It's to say that given all of the things that the village has mandated in its zoning as deductions from lot area, when you look at this parcel of property, this owner needs that variance. And then as far as the detriments to the village generally, that's really not the inquiry that is made. It's the inquiry, because if that was the case, there would never be any variances granted, because the village board is saying, hey, this is what we feel the law should be. Well, then how do you come in and justify a variance if you are, quote, going against the interests of the general community? No, it's a balancing between the benefit to the applicant and the detriment to the surrounding property owners. So I appreciate the fact that property owners in this area have had a lovely wooded area that they have been living next to for quite some time. And I can understand why they would want to see it preserved and not want to have development there. But we also have property owners who are allowed to develop their property, and they have property rights to do that as well. So you have a balance between the benefit to the property owner and the detriment to the surrounding property owners. What is the detriment? The land is not going to be developed upon, which is environmentally sensitive. The density is not going to increase over the 1 acre zoning because there's not going to be more units of housing per acre. than what the zoning allows. So what we are really saying is allow this property owner reasonably to develop not on land that is environmentally sensitive, and allow this property owner to get a reasonable return on the property. And that's the reason for the application. Thank you.
I will entertain a motion to continue the public hearing to our December 11th meeting.
Motion?
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Very good. And now we'll move on to our actions on Aon. So anybody who wants to stay is welcome to. Anyone who wants to leave is welcome to leave as well. Thank you for coming tonight. Where is my Aon?
Thank you, James.
There it is.
Thank you.
All right, so I need
So-
to got that.
Sure. So the first action would be to assume lead agency under seeker in an uncoordinated review.
Motion on that? Motion by Ed? Second by Michael. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried.
Second would be to classify this as an unlisted action.
Motion to classify this as an unlisted action.
Second?
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
No.
Motion carried.
And then as far as the third, so Kelly did circulate a proposed EAF Part 2, and that goes through and asks whether there's a no or small impact or a moderate to large impact. And everything was checked no to small in this case. The one I'd highlight would be the first one in consistency with zoning, because of course they're here for the variance.
Right.
If the board is in agreement with those answered, it'd be appropriate to issue a negative declaration under seeker.
Comments? I'm in agreement with what Kelly circulated. So anyone opposed?
No.
Okay, so motion to declare a negative declaration for SECRA under this action. Motion by Ed, second by Beverly. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried.
And then if the board would want to go through the factors.
Yep, I'll take that. If I can find it, there it is. So I need the other piece first. Give me a second. Because I don't like it when people do this. I'm getting there. Piles of paper. There we go. Okay. This makes it easier for me. Will the granting of this variance produce an undesirable change in the character of the neighborhood or create a detriment to nearby properties? The applicant states the requested variance will not result in an undesirable change or be a detriment to nearby properties. It will allow the applicant to comply with franchisor requirements in order to develop a high-quality hotel with 85 rooms on a parcel of land that exceeds 13 acres as a Comfort Suites hotel. As noted, the applicant has entered into a franchise agreement with Choice Hotels to establish a Comfort Suites hotel on its property. The hotel will be operated by Prestige Hospitality Group, LLC. The proposed hotel would be located on less than 3 acres of the site, and the remaining lands would not be disturbed and will be maintained in their existing condition. I'll drop down, and I don't know if you all read this because it was in the packet. So if I'm being redundant, I'll skip to the sign on the rear facade will only be visible to the east, primarily to travelers on the thruway. See images, site exhibit 11. And as an on-premises sign located within the regulated area of the thruway, it will also require a permit for the New York State Thruway Authority. The potential for off-site impacts from the proposed sign on the rear facade is reduced by its limited visibility. The screening provided by existing mature trees along the thruway boundary in compliance with the provisions of Section 310-30 of Village Code. Anyone disagree with the applicant?
No. Yeah.
It's facing the throughway, there's nothing really there.
All agree?
Agreed.
Unanimous. We all agree with the applicant. Can the benefit you seek be achieved by some other feasible method other than a variance? The provision of adequate signage is a requirement of the applicant's franchise agreement. With respect to the requested relief, there is no other feasible method that the applicant can pursue other than a requested variance to allow the development of its proposed hotel use on the property with adequate signage. I don't disagree. Anyone else?
No.
Unanimous?
No.
Okay. Unanimously agreed with the applicant. How substantial is the variance that you're requesting? Insofar as it would allow 2 wall signs instead of 1, the requested variance is not substantial. Together, the area of both signs will not exceed the total sign area that a single wall sign on the hotel could have. Both signs cannot be seen at one time. Moreover, numerous commercial uses exist in the IB zoning district of the village that display 2 signs on their facades, and several of those have as many as 4 signs. See images of typical buildings in IB zoning district, Exhibit 12.
Is it substantial? Is 1 versus 2 signs? Yes, but I still don't see a problem with approving this based on the location of the sign.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think the
Right.
difference is that you're closer to a lot more residential properties, which is a little bit different than the Hampton Inn, for instance. But it's really not significant. I mean, I'm looking at Google images right now. I mean, it would be almost impossible to see.
Right, and not to say because another project was granted the right to have more signs or bigger signs, it should be granted here, but no, it's not a variance that should be considered.
So are we in agreement with the
We're-
applicant unanimously? Very good. Okay. I like to get a yes or no. Will the granting of the variance have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district? The proposed variance will not have an adverse impact on physical or environmental conditions in the district. The proposed use does not exceed any of the criteria of significance set forth in NYCRR 61.7C. The planning board issued a negative declaration with respect to the proposed secret action before it, which showed wall signs on both facades in January 2015 and subsequently affirmed that determination. In 2017, when the applicant sought an area variance from a newly enacted frontage requirement needed to allow the proposed project, the ZBA issued a negative declaration on May 10th, 2017, although it subsequently denied that variance request. As noted above, the second sign will not be visible to surrounding properties on the north, west, or south side. The view of the sign from residential properties to the east of the thruway will be reduced by distance and further mitigated by the existing mature trees and vegetation along the site setback and within the thruway right-of-way. Further, the property to the north is located in the IB zoning district and used by a landscaping business. There's substantial open space to the south that will be owned by the applicant and maintained as open space. Comments?
How can you change the neighborhood if you don't really have a neighborhood? It's next to a throughway. And there's vacant lots there, so. I tend to agree with the applicant that it really doesn't matter. There's
No impact, no adverse impact. I would agree. Anyone else? Unanimous agreement? Very good. Okay. And lastly, is the alleged difficulty self-created? The difficulty was not self-created. As noted, the building elevations reviewed and approved by the planning board showed that there would be 2 wall signs. The building inspector indicated 2 signs would be allowed, provided that the total area of those signs did not exceed the total area allowed by zoning. We can go on with the applicant. I'll skip to the last paragraph. The applicant therefore requests that the ZBA grant an area variance from the provision of attachment 11 if and to the extent that the schedule does not restrict buildings located in the IB zoning district to one wall sign, to allow a second wall sign to be located on the rear facade of the applicant's approved hotel as shown on the building elevations and sign design package submitted to this applicant's sign contractor. I think the board made it clear that by requesting a variance, it is self-created. Don't request a sign, then it's not self-created. In this case, it's self-created actually by the franchise agreement. So none of that prohibits or precludes us from granting the variance. Do we agree?
Agree.
Okay, very good. And with that, I will accept a motion to request council to prepare a decision consistent with our discussions here this evening.
Second.
Any discussion?
None.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried. With no further business to conduct, I will accept a motion to adjourn. Motion, get it over with. All in favor? Aye. Thank you for waiting.